The flight had barely lifted off when whispers began to ripple through first class, all directed toward the calm black woman in seat 1A. She wasn't loud, she wasn't rude, and she wasn't out of place. But to him, the senior flight attendant, with a perfect smile and a bruised ego, she didn't belong. His voice sliced through the quiet cabin. "Ma'am, this seat is reserved for first-class passengers." Cameras turned. Passengers smirked. She didn't argue, only looked at him with an expression that mixed grace and quiet thunder. What no one knew was that in less than 2 hours, this same man would be standing at her office door, trembling as she signed his paycheck with the same calm hand he had tried to dismiss. The woman's name was Dr. Maya Ellis, a global executive and philanthropist known for leading one of the country's top aerospace corporations, though no one on that plane recognized her without her title or her tailored entourage. Today she wore simplicity like armor, a cream blazer, natural curls pinned back, and a quiet confidence that didn't need validation. She was returning from a humanitarian summit in Geneva, exhausted but content, her mind still replaying conversations about progress and equality. Ironically, she was now living the very prejudice she'd been fighting to dismantle. The attendant, Daniel Reeves, proud of his immaculate uniform and reputation for maintaining order, couldn't shake the feeling that Maya's poise was a challenge to his authority. Every time she smiled, it felt like defiance. Every calm word she spoke was an accusation he couldn't name. As the plane sliced through clouds over the Atlantic, tension hovered heavier than the turbulence. Maya simply closed her eyes, choosing peace over spectacle, unaware that the next time Daniel would see her, she wouldn't be the passenger he could order. She would be the power behind his paycheck. Her calm wasn't weakness. It was precision. A silence that would echo back in ways Daniel could never imagine. When the plane landed in New York, Maya waited until the cabin cleared before standing. There was no anger in her movements, just an unshakable grace that seemed to unsettle Daniel more than any confrontation could. As she retrieved her carry-on, he offered a stiff, reluctant nod, trying to mask the unease in his chest. Something about her silence felt final. Outside the terminal, rain drizzled over the runway as Maya's driver opened the car door of a sleek black sedan embossed with a discreet Ether Dynamics emblem, her company's insignia. Daniel, heading home from his shift, didn't notice her step into it. But the universe had already started drawing their lines toward collision. 2 days later, at Ether Dynamics headquarters, Daniel stood in the lobby, freshly dressed in a borrowed suit. He'd been invited, or rather summoned, for a mandatory meeting after applying for a full-time corporate flight liaison position. This job meant everything to him: stability, benefits, respect. He rehearsed his answers under his breath, determined to impress whoever sat behind that polished mahogany desk. When the doors opened, he froze. There she was, the woman from seat 1A, seated at the head of the boardroom, signing documents with quiet authority. No flight attendant uniform could save him now. Maya looked up, her gaze steady but not cruel. The same calm that once disarmed him in the air now carried the weight of undeniable power. She didn't need to remind him of what he'd done. Her very presence did it for her. And as Daniel stood before her, trembling under the weight of realization, she simply said, "Let's begin." That voice, the same one he'd dismissed as unworthy of first class, now carried the authority to decide his future. The irony was flawless. The room fell into a heavy silence, the kind that bends air itself. Daniel's pulse roared in his ears as he tried to steady his breath. Every instinct screamed at him to apologize, but Maya's calm, deliberate poise made words feel useless. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't humiliate him. She didn't need to. Her authority filled the space like quiet thunder. She slid a document across the table, his personnel file marked with red. "Your performance in passenger relations," she said evenly, "was noted by several travelers on Flight 762. Each syllable was precise, almost surgical. One report described your treatment as discriminatory." Daniel's throat tightened. His knees felt hollow. The very word he used to laugh off in diversity training was now carved into his future. But then, instead of firing him, Maya closed the folder. "Growth doesn't start with punishment," she said softly. "It starts with awareness." Her words cut deeper than anger ever could. For the first time, Daniel truly saw her. Not as a passenger, not as a woman to police, but as someone whose calm was forged from years of surviving storms he could never comprehend. Maya stood, extending her hand, the same one he refused to respect days ago. This time, Daniel took it, trembling. It wasn't forgiveness she offered. It was a mirror. In that single handshake, everything he thought he knew about power shattered. When Daniel stepped out of that boardroom, the world felt different, heavier, quieter, yet somehow cleaner. The rain had started again outside, streaking the glass walls of the tower in silver trails. He stood there for a long time, staring at his reflection in the lobby doors. The same man, but not the same soul. Behind him, Maya watched through her office window. There was no triumph in her eyes, only a weary kind of peace. The peace that comes from choosing dignity over vengeance. She'd seen men like Daniel her whole life, but this time she didn't just walk away. She made him see. That small act, her restraint, her grace, would echo longer than any public outrage could. Weeks later, Daniel volunteered to lead the company's new inclusivity program, quietly crediting "someone who taught me what real class means." And Maya? She moved on to her next project, another flight, another meeting, another battle, for equality that would never truly end. Yet somewhere inside her, she carried the quiet satisfaction of knowing that change, however small, had taken root. Because sometimes justice isn't loud. It doesn't demand applause. It simply stands, tall, calm, composed, and undeniable, like a woman in seat 1A who refused to move.